Like so many of you, I heard the same viral song by Oliver Anthony, Richmond, north of Richmond, the other day, and it got me thinking, what is the foundation of our society? Maybe Warren Buffett is right about holding Congress accountable. Why is it that we promote so much diversity, but when it comes to diversity of thought, it's almost seen as evil? I'm going to dive deep into this song, and it shook me to my core, forcing me to confront some hard truths about the world that we live in. My reaction to this song is about inflation in this country and the falling of one of the greatest countries in the world. This song really hit me directly to my soul. It got me reflecting on the intricate web of systems we're entangled in and the illusions we're often sold. Think about it. If they can just print money, why are we still paying taxes? It reminds me of what Milton Friedman, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, once said about inflation. He compared it to alcoholism. At first, the effects feel good. You print the money, much like you'd take a drink, and everything seems brighter. But just as with alcohol, the hangover from inflation comes later, and it sucks. Well, remember during COVID? They were handing out $1,200 checks to everyone. Every crisis demands exponentially more money to be printed, adding more liabilities from the last round of printing. It's a vicious cycle, and it's unsustainable. This is why it always culminates in hyperinflation. The central bank, driven by precedent and incentive, continues to print money until the currency hyperinflates into worthlessness. So what you've been saving up in your 401k for years probably won't be worth much. Oliver, or Chris, which is his real name, talks about how your dollar ain't shit. Well, it's not. I read the letter that Chris, or Oliver, wrote to the world about his mental health, and his song hit home for me like it did for everyone else. There was 39 million views in the first 2 weeks. And I hope to engage in a genuine conversation about the world that we live in, the systems that bind us, and the choices we're forced to make. Because in the past year, things have changed for me just like they have Chris. And I know how you feel too, because you have to be going through something similar. You see, I was making a 6-figure salary back in New York City in 2019, but I knew things were getting bad. I just could feel it. So I literally packed my bags, I bought a car and built a bed in the back and started driving to Argentina in search for something more than just money. I understand we need money, and I like making money, don't get me wrong, but I just couldn't take the hustle and bustle anymore. I bought a house in Brooklyn prior in 2018 to rent it on Airbnb and live the American dream somewhere else. I literally just couldn't handle working in corporate America anymore, and I had enough. Today, America champions the idea of this diversity. It's everywhere. I think because it's an easier distraction than people to think for themselves. We're all about embracing various cultures, economic backgrounds, and hues of skin color, yet when it comes to diversity of thought, the same embrace seems to be lacking. While we celebrate our differences in many areas, differing opinions often don't receive the same warm reception. Living between the US and Mexico has given me a unique advantage point, allowing me to witness the stark contrast between these two neighboring nations. Let's start with the core values that define each society. In Mexico, 3 values reign supreme: God, family, and money. And in that order, God is the guiding force, the moral compass that directs every action. Family is the heart, the very essence of life, and money, while is essential, is merely a tool to support the first two. This hierarchy of values is deeply ingrained in the Mexican physique. It's evident in the way they work, live, and interact with everyone around them. Contrast this with the US, where the order seems completely reversed. Money takes the forefront, often becoming the driving force behind major life decisions. Family, while important, often becomes conditional, subject to the whims and pressures of modern life. And God, for many, he's become an afterthought, lost in the hustle and bustle of daily life. This difference in values is also evident in the way each country approaches debt. In the US, consumer debt is rampant. Credit cards often flood our mailboxes, enticing us with promises of rewards and travel points. This culture of borrowing and spending has contributed to the inflationary pressures we see today. Mexico, on the other hand, doesn't share this obsession with credit. People work hard, often with their hands, earning every peso they spend. The idea of borrowing to sustain a lifestyle is foreign to many people here. But the USA can't accept the diversity here. Why? Because then you can't be a good citizen or a contributing member to society. How many people do you know who literally go to work to pay for shit that they can't afford? Now let's talk about drugs like Oliver's letter that he posted. In the US, we see a devastating effect of drug addiction on our streets. I just watched a TV show on Netflix about Purdue Pharmaceuticals, but especially in places like San Francisco. Yet here in Mexico, where I currently reside, those same drugs are readily available over the counter. I literally could walk into a pharmacy and get pretty much any drug that I want. But you don't see homeless junkies on the streets. Why? Because people here are driven by a different set of values. They work hard, they prioritize their family, and they live by the teachings of God. They don't get trapped in the vicious cycle of addiction because they're too busy taking care of their families, fulfilling what they believe is their divine duty. Cities like San Francisco are grappling with drug epidemics, with addicts literally lining the streets. They literally are giving needles to drug addicts. Yet in Mexico, where many of these drugs are easily available, you don't see this level of societal breakdown. Why? Because the Mexican ethos, rooted in God and family, provides a protective barrier against such pitfalls. No one has time to let their family down because they're off to work. No one is running up in school shooting one another. No one even has guns here. In essence, living between these two worlds has been an eye-opener for me. It's taught me that while economic systems and policies play a role, it's the underlying values of a society that truly shape its destiny. This stark contrast between the US and Mexico isn't just limited to drug culture. It extends to taxation. I own a home in Mexico too, a place where I've built memories and amazing dreams and friendships. Yet the US government, thousands of miles away, still taxes me on the income that I earn from it. It feels like handcuffs, binding me to a system I no longer belong to, because they forced me out since the values just don't align. And it's not just me. Every American living abroad feels the weight of this taxation. We're a part of only 2 countries in the world that tax their citizens for earning money outside of their borders. But amidst all of this, there's a beacon of hope. I spent years studying how politicians structure their taxes, how big corporations protect their wealth, and I found ways to navigate through this complex system. And I figured out how to save 80% on my taxes. I read a shit ton of comments in the original video posted. Truck drivers getting hurt, not being covered, and laid off with their bills. People working 70 hours a week while everything around them is raising in price. It just doesn't make sense that everyone is worried about what body parts they have between their legs when there is no accountability on anyone making these laws. I watched a video the other day where Warren Buffett, he said, I could end the deficit in 5 minutes. You just pass a law that says that anytime there is a deficit of more than 3% of the GDP, all sitting members of Congress are ineligible for re-election. At its core, Buffett's plan is about accountability. The current members of Congress would be incentivized to maintain a deficit under 3% of the GDP or risk losing their chance at re-election. This rule would put accountability and responsibility on these fiscal policies, as their political future would hinge on their ability to manage the nation's debt. I firmly believe that the power to reshape our financial future lies in our hands. What if we took matters into our own hands and established our own very own banking system? Here's a thought. Begin by laying the foundation with a community trust structure, and once that's in place, designate every member as a managing director of their own individual trust. Then we pool our resources into collective trust accounts. With the amassed funds, we can make strategic investments in tangible assets like gold, silver, and different commodities. The returns from these investments can then be distributed as dividends among all community members. Imagine the potential if this model was adopted by communities everywhere. Local groups, churches, organizations, families, we could all harness this approach. The result? A shift in wealth, transferring it from the clutches of global financial giants back to the people where it really belongs. The global elite, often referred to as the New World Order, are genuinely interested in our financial well-being. Look at what is happening right in front of you. Their game is power and dominance. By taking control of our financial destiny, we can counteract their influence and ensure our wealth remains in our hands. In New York, I worked tirelessly to establish an Airbnb business, like I mentioned, to escape the rat race, only to face endless bureaucratic hurdles and unexpected challenges that politicians put in place. Like Oliver says, I wish politicians would look out for minors. In Mexico, while challenges exist, I'm not saying that they don't. There's a sense of straightforwardness. If you don't pay the rent, the consequences are imminent and clear-cut and immediate. There's no lengthy legal process or convoluted eviction laws. It's simple. If you don't hold up your end of the bargain, you face the consequences and you get taken out of the home for not paying your rent. But that doesn't happen because, again, the values are aligned here. But it's not just about money or business practices. It's about the very fabric of society. Here in Mexico, there's a sense of community, a shared responsibility. People look out for one another. They understand the importance of mutual respect and trust. The idea of someone occupying a property without paying, as I experienced in New York, is almost unthinkable here. I remember when I was younger during September 11th, the whole country, we pulled together for what, a year? Now, we just pass each 9/11 with a few videos on the news and the history. My point is, we all know how to come together. We've done it in my lifetime, but each person isn't held accountable because of these values. Consider this. We work for wages, right? We're taxed on those. Then, when we head out to buy stuff, there's sales tax on top of that. So essentially, we're getting taxed on money we've already been taxed on. And let's say we decide to invest in property or something big. We pay sales tax when buying and then property taxes yearly on it. So again, taxing money that's been previously taxed. Now imagine, after years of saving and investing, when we pass away, there's another tax on the money that's already seen multiple layers of taxation. It just seems like a never-ending cycle. Personally, I feel there should be just a limit, say no more than 30% to how much we're taxed. And this is what people should be protesting against, not whether or not a man or a woman could be playing sports. All of this stems from people not having something of substance to live for. And this is my point. There is no culture in the United States other than money. And money is seen as the root of everything, but it's played out like a hamster wheel. This song by Oliver came out 2 weeks ago, and it really had me thinking. I thought about this pretty hard for quite some time, and I felt obligated that I had to talk about it because, like Oliver, I had so many difficult times, and then I thought about it even more. According to how I was raised by my amazing parents, I feel like it's all being taken away, and I'm forced to play the game of just keep pushing. But when I worked in New York City, I had to get away and decided to go on this crazy journey to better myself where money wasn't the focus. I can see how and why Oliver turned down $8 million because this short 3-minute song puts it all into perspective. And those who can't believe how he turned it down, in my opinion, they just don't understand what they don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm out.